Hi folks, hope you're well out there still. Today's video is going to be about Kdenlive. So Kdenlive is a powerful free and open source video editor that will work, and it looks the same across Linux, Intel macOS, as well as Windows. In fact, my wife is using it for her Furniture Flipping Rush channel on YouTube, and she's using a Windows computer. I'm using a Linux computer. Looks exactly the same, so actually great because we can help each other out as she learns some things and I learn some other things. We can often cross-pollinate, those ideas and so on. But it's also just important to note that Kdenlive is not for actual video recording and capture, like say OBStudio does. But it will do multi-track editing and effects on videos that you've already recorded using, OBStudio or Simple Recorder or VocoScreen or whatever that I've done videos on before. One exception, though, to the recording part is that you can capture audio to dub or to overlay or do voice overlays on a audio track, which is useful to fix some problems. And I'll show that a little bit later in the video as well. I'm not going to be going today in depth into how to use it and all the detailed usage of it really, because that could be a series of videos. But if you're deciding whether you want to choose Kdenlive or you decided you want to watch and just see how to quickly get going using it, then this video is for you. I'll just be giving an overview of the basics that Kdenlive can do for you and the features that I use every time I use it. The point really there is that Kdenlive can be as quick and simple as you want it to be, or it can be a lot more complex. It just depends on how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole. Although I've tested quite a few alternatives, I've always come back to Kdenlive, possibly because in my opinion, it is very simple and intuitive to use. And I was just myself the other day doing some searches because I'm constantly looking at new things, and that's what I'll do a lot of my videos about. But often I've also gone back to things again that I wanted to reuse, or, gone back to things like Kdenlive. And funny enough, when I was doing some internet searches, there my own videos were popping up showing me how I'd actually done something before. So it just brought home to me the fact again, but gosh, I'm looking at a lot of new things, but maybe I should do a video about Kdenlive, mainly because it really has stood the test of time and I've been using it consistently over the years now. So in this video, I'm going to be covering some of the layout of Kdenlive, what the different parts of the screen are actually doing. And I will also take you through the process that I follow to do my, the basic methodology that I follow to do my videos every time I do them. So it's going to be the sort of the tried and tested basics just to get the video out. If my videos is more or less what you want to do, then this will help you to achieve the same thing. So that was the website that I just quickly went through. It's also worth just checking the user manual on their website if you want to drill a bit deeper into, any of the things you want to have a look at. But I think without further ado, let's get to the screen layout and the methodology that I use. So this is the basic screen layout that you're going to see when you open Kdenlive. I should just say though that all these various panes that I'm going to talk about, they are all fully customizable, and different views, like if you look up here, a logging view, editing view, a audio view, effects view, color, all that sort of thing. It changes the lookout of Kdenlive. So under view menu here, you'll see you can save layouts, and I suggest you do that when you've got something that works for you. Save it with a name, default or whatever the case is, so you can always recall it again quickly if you've changed things. For example, you can see there's a whole lot of saved layouts over here that you can just load, and it's going to change really how the whole thing looks, and you can tick on and off all these different things here. So just briefly going around the screen then, top left over here, this pane is the project bin, and inside the project bin is where you're going to drag and drop, or you're going to add clips or folders from the drive. The other things are things like adding a title clip, templates, and I can just show quickly some of the online resources are quite interesting. If you are looking for things, for example, like sounds, there's a lot of free sounds that you can choose. I've just searched for forest there, for example. And these are now sounds that if you click all these different ones here. If you click on import, it's going to pop it across into your project bin ready for use, but you could change it, say, to photos. And there's a couple of photos for, relating to forest. Same thing, import, and it'll pop across to your project bin. So that's really it. And I can just show you quickly. Let me just bring the first clip in and show you something here. Also, normally for a new project, you're going to set obviously all your resolutions and your effects. But what I find a quicker way to get going is I record my videos in one long take with all the ums and the ahs and the mistakes and the pauses and the telephone ringing and whatever the case is. And then I edit it basically sort of in place. So my video is already recorded at 1920 by 1080p, either 30 frames a second or 60 frames a second. So all I do to set everything up is really, I just add that clip that I've already recorded. I'm going to use, in this case, just a sample clip. And you'll see when it comes in, it says here, do you want to switch to clips profile that's already there? And I always just say yes. Then I know that by default, my Kdenlive is already set up perfectly, matching, the resolution and so on of the main video I'll be using. Everything else that I drop in must just, match to that. So that's the project bin. The next pane we've got over here is effects and compositions. Along the top, you can filter it on, these are just the video effects, for example. And you can see various of these. You'll drag these really down, and I'll show you just now. We'll drag them down onto the timeline to apply them on the tracks. There's various audio ones as well. These are the effects ones. You'll see if I click at the bottom, here's compositions. Compositions will be things like wipe effects and UV maps and slides and slide changes, all these sort of different effects over here as well. Then, depending on which effects you've got active on a particular track down here, you'll see in this pane will be the various settings that you can change. We'll look at that as well just now. And then on the right-hand side here, you've got the monitor window. At the moment, it's on clip monitor because I'm focused on a clip. We're not looking at the project timeline yet. So you could play the clip from here. Well, seeing that I've just moved back to OBS Studio, and you can have an intake or outtake if you want to, but I tend to just drag it down and do all my editing below. I don't worry with that over there. Over here, obviously, you'll see the sound level, so you can determine if it's too loud or too soft and so on as well. And another tip really around the monitor window really is that if, for example, you've got to look at some very fine information around, say, looking for email addresses or other personal information that you want to check, you can hit F11, and by hitting F11, it's popped up on another screen at the moment, but can I get it studio after using some other video capture? It's popping up onto my other monitor, but essentially it'll open it up full screen monitor. And yes, on my case, it opens up on a secondary monitor next to what I'm editing, and then I can look at it in much finer detail. So it's F11 full screen, and then to the other monitor, and F11 to bring it back inside here again. And the last part of the layout really is the project timeline at the bottom. So you're going to see a couple of tracks over here. This is the bottommost track, and these are tracks that are layered above them. So you'll obviously have your main video usually at the bottom on track 1, which is video 1 and audio 1, which are grouped together. And then track 2 I use for things like titles, intros, and various other things. And track 3 I put a logo on, usually that'll appear on the top left, top right corner there. That is really how the tracks work. You can also rename the clips here, by the way. If you put a lot of clips in, you can look at the rename option, just so you can remember which ones you're working with in what orders. And the same actually goes here for the tracks. You can also give it a name for the track as well if you want to. And this is really how you progress or scrub along the lines. So I think let's have a look then at how I actually do a video. I start, as I've already shown you, by bringing in the main clip. Now remember, I said as well that this clip could be incredibly long. I do one very long take, so it could be an hour-long video. Now, on a slower computer, in many applications, that's going to cause some serious problems with the editing as you're scrubbing back and forth and cutting and clipping and copying bits of video. So you'll notice here is a P on a yellow square. That stands for the fact that it's a proxied video. What it's done is now it has downscaled this video to a much smaller file. So the quality that you're going to see here while I'm editing is not going to be 1920 by 1080, but for editing purposes, it's fine for me to work with, and it makes it really quick to edit. I'll show you in the settings when we get near the end how you set it up that it automatically does a proxy clip. The other one that's key for me is that I also import, I use Canva online, which is a free service, and I'll put a link below the video as well, to design my YouTube or my video thumbnails, as well as my little short intro clip, a 5-second intro clip. So I've already done one of those, and I'll just also say here, add clip or folder, and select it, because it's one of the first things I'm going to put on my video. So on the video track over here, right at the beginning, is going to be my intro clip. We'll have a look at it just now. The next one I'm going to bring down is my long video that I've recorded. Well, in this case, it's not going to be so long. Then while you're on the timeline here, I don't know all the shortcuts, to be honest, myself, but the one I do use a bit is Control mouse wheel, which will help you just zoom in. So I've zoomed in now. You can obviously, you can see the clip a lot closer. That's a 5-second intro. So what I typically do is you can right click and add compositions like wipe and this and that, but for these crossfade type effects, I prefer just to do it manually. So I will grab that little red dot over there and drag it left. That'll be the fade out. And you'll see now, seeing I've got focus on it, up at the top there is actually the fade out. You could do it up there as well, but I prefer to do it down here. And then there's a bit of silence over here before it starts. So what I'm going to do is just cut that and trim it off there. So you'll see I use the little scissors icon over here, or button. Click on the scissors. You go there and you just click left click to cut it. Back to the select icon there. I click on it there and I just hit the delete button to get rid of it. And then you click and drag this across. And I'm going to bring it sort of more or less to where it's starting to fade. And I will take here the fade in one, or what's that? Fade out, really. Fade out to video. But anyway, it's the green one here. You just drag that across and you should now have a crossfade effect. You can, by the way, do the same with the sound if you want to as well. But I don't tend to fade the sound in and out unless there's some noise there at the beginning, really. Then just to preview it and see what it looks like so far, to see if the start is right, you just click over here and drag yourself back to the left, and you can press play. You'll see now it's on project monitor, no longer on clip monitor. We're now going to be playing on the project timeline here. So you hit play. Well, seeing that I've just moved back to OBS Studio, okay, and that looks okay for me to start with. Before we start actually cutting and splicing video, there's another tip I just want to talk about here. You may just find that there's something that's consistent throughout your entire video that's maybe not right with the image or with the audio. Say, for example, it's a bit too dark, the image, or on the audio side, it's too loud, or it's a little bit too soft. Too soft is often possibly what actually happens. Obviously here you can see now on the thumbnail I'm peaking fairly well there. But if it is too soft, for example, if you apply an effect onto the timeline, it by default will apply to everything across the entire clip. If you want it to be something shorter, you can put 2 cuts in maybe. But why I'm saying do it at the beginning is because possibly something like volume you want to do throughout the video. You don't want to have to go and apply it to each and every segment later on. So check that at the beginning and see if you're happy with it. In my case, I want to maybe just say take the volume down a notch or 2. So the quick and easy way to do that is you can right click here on the audio part and you just say insert an effect and volume keyframable. The keyframable part means you can set keyframes along the length of the clip wherever you want it and adjust the volumes individually there, later on if you want to. Once it's applied like this, you'll see it's got a keyframe right at the beginning and it's on 0 dB difference. I could push it up to increase the volume or bring it down. So let me just bring it down a little bit, say just 2 dBs over there. Now it'll be 2 dBs right across. If you move there, you can see up at the top here, it'll stay on minus 2 dBs. I'm going to show you just now when we go and fix a sort of a part of the sound, how you can maybe use the keyframes later on. So just remember, if there's something needs to apply across the whole of the video, do it at the beginning of the clip before you start cutting and chopping. And there may be other effects as well that you want to apply there. Say, equalization on audio. You've got things like, if I go to effects here, there is also various filters, high pass, low pass filters, equalization, and other things you can apply as well. So pitch modulation, that sort of thing. So I think the next thing we can have a look at is typically a title. So where I will apply title is if I've got a segment of where I've been speaking and there's no particular break for me to dub the sound or do that sort of thing, I might just need to pop a message up on the screen, or for whatever reason you might want to put a title up. So all you do is just stand more or less where you want to have the title to start. Let's move it a bit right. And you go back to your project bin up on the top left over here, you right click and you say add a title clip. Now, why it was important to stand more or less where you want it to be is because by default it can also show you a background of what video is behind the title. It helps you place the title. You can have that on or off if you click on show background here. But in my case, I prefer to keep it on. So you click up here on add text. You click where you want the text and you can just type, whatever it's going to be. You can also change on the right-hand side here, the color. You can make it a gradient color, bold, different fonts. You can add a shadow effect. Actually, I normally like the shadow effect for the text. You can adjust the shadow. You can change the typewriter effects, spacing, zoom. And also important here is where you'd rotate in 3 different axes. You can rotate the text as well, or whatever you're putting on the screen. So if you're happy with that, then you just click wherever and you move it to wherever you want it. The other thing I always do for text is, especially when it's got a busy screen, I will just add some background shape. And I normally use the rectangle shape. Click up there on add rectangle. And you just surround more or less where the text is and you click. So the only one downside with Kdenlive, and maybe there's some other way around it, it's only really oval or ellipse shapes or rectangles. And I would love to have rounded corners. I want to really have rounded rectangle, but there doesn't seem to be an option. Unless somebody knows how to do it, then please suggest to me in the comments below. And then obviously to get it behind the text, it's still selected. You go up to the top over here and you click on lower object to bottom, and that will just put the text, the shadow text, in front of it there. One other thing I can just say before we move off and create this, under template at the bottom, there's a whole bunch of templates as well for things like lower third, titles, scrolling text, and a couple of other things you can explore as well if you want to. But anyway, that's basically the title. Then I'm just going to go down to the bottom right here and I click on create title. It's now popped it into the project bin over there. All I now do is I drag it on the second video track. I drag it to where I want it to start. And you can also adjust the duration over there. And then, of course, also the fade. You can now maybe give it a bit longer fade, in fact, because I just want a short message to pop up. Say like that. And then, of course, you just go preview and test it. Video after using some other video capture applications. And that's really how titles work. Then the other thing that's going to happen quite a bit, and this is what I spend most of my time doing, is chopping out things like long pauses and ums and ahs and so on. So you've got a couple of different ways you can do it, really. First of all, obviously, if you drag this, you can scrub back and forth and listen to the audio using some other video capture. So for example, here I've got quite a long pause. So this doesn't affect the the video at all. So in many cases, what you might want to do is just cut out things like a long pause or even an or whatever the case is. So again, you're going to just click on your little scissors and you can go to wherever you want to do the cut. Go back to select, choose the thing of the clip and just hit your delete key. And another tip just to bring the clip back in to close the gap there is remember that the clips off to the right could also have cuts or gaps already that you've done. So the best way to bring it all in is to right click in the space and just say remove space. It instantly pulls everything across to the left and makes sure that it is, all continuous. You don't want to have gaps and blanks in the middle of your video. So that was the one way, the plain cut. The other one is to ungroup it and cut the sound out. Now, I would maybe do this if it's something fairly short. The video is moving above, so if I happen to cut a 1 second chunk out, it's going to maybe interrupt the video. So what I'll do then is I can just remove the sound portion. This is maybe a good opportunity now just to use this as a sound test as well. So I can take out this as well, for example, but maybe I want to keep the video in place. So what I'll do then is, first of all, cut the video where I want to do my effect on both sides, because remember, whatever I apply in the middle now is only going to be applicable there in the middle. At the moment, though, the audio is attached to the video. So what I'm going to do here is I just right click and I say ungroup clips. Now the two can be separately selected. So what I'll now do is just delete that sound. If I wanted to, I could just leave it like that and let it play through in silence over there. But let's try another method here. The other way is you could dub or voice over some sound as well. So the way to do this is you go to wherever you want the sound to start. It sort of snaps there normally if you sit there. The art here is going to be making it short enough to fit into the gap. But it doesn't matter. For this purposes, I suppose we can just sort of demo it. So how you want to be able to record sound is on a clip is you go to its header over here on the left and you right click on it and you just click there, show record controls. And what's going to now appear is a little record button and the sound levels that you're measuring. The only problem I've got now is I'm going to try this, but I'm not sure which microphone is going to be picking me up at the moment. So it's not the microphone I'm speaking through, so you may not hear me very clearly. Or it might not be this microphone. So you click the red button to start and you click it to end. So let me try that now. And you can watch the levels of the meter there as well while I'm busy speaking. This is a voiceover. And what it's done now is it's created a audio clip where I was standing at where I started to create the recording control on track 2's audio track. So it's created it up there. And if you play it, this is what you can hear me speaking there. So what I'll maybe do now is just trim that a little bit as well. And see if I can fit it in there. Okay, it's not really going to fit in there. It won't matter too much. This sound, this is a voiceover. It'll more or less fit in there. So if I had to play it now, sound test. This is a voiceover. See how the sound and the audio is coming through. So that's roughly how I do it. If it fitted in, you could just chop it and cut it, and you could fit it in the bottom here. That's one option. Or you can do something really strange, like changing the speed, for example. That would also fit it in, but it's going to sound a bit like Mickey Mouse. If I had to speed it up, how many seconds is that? Say it's that. Oh, that's a bit too short. Well, that'll fit in like that, but obviously it's going to sound a bit... Yeah, that's not going to work. But anyway, you see what I mean. You can play around with quite a few things there. The other one I wanted to show you was the volume keyframable. Here what you do is you can adjust the volume. So we can take it over here. So So you can listen to this portion here, and this happens to me quite a bit while I'm thinking and I'm speaking. So sometimes I'll also start a sentence with a filler word like so I can maybe take that out. Otherwise, there'll be too many so's in one sentence. So what you can do is, and you see there's another so, is you can either just cut that if it's not going to affect the video, but the other one is just damp down the sound really. But remember what I said is if you adjust the volume, it's going to adjust it for the entire clip. So all we do is we just isolate it by clipping on each side over there. And now we can select the audio. And you'll see up at the top here now is the volume keyframables controls. So just make sure you're standing in it, you've selected it. If it was for the whole of that clip, like we're seeing now, it's still at -2 dB. You could just take that and drag it down to silence. If you listen now, there's nothing. If it's something you just wanted to quieten down, though, you could go back up to -2. What you then do is you just set a couple of keyframes and you adjust the volume in there. So normally I adjust the front and the back. You go up to here and you'll see this little symbol up there, the stopwatch with a plus. It says add keyframe. You click on it and it'll add the keyframe over there. So we'll start and end with still -2 dB, but I'm going to lower the volume in the middle. You just move, say, there to the middle, add a keyframe, so move it a bit to the right again, add another keyframe. And now what you can do is just drag the volume down over there. You could either drag it down to nothing. You may just want to make it, very quiet like that. And if you listen to it now, you should also be able to see the gain moving over there as you're playing. So sometimes I'll also start a sentence with a filler. So that's really the other. So that's at least 4 ways that I've shown already now how you can sort of change and edit clips and sound. And what I'll often do as well is if I've got a longer piece that I've dubbed in here and it's static video like this, what I'll often do is I'll take this piece of video and just say copy, and then I'll paste it. Oh, it's come with the sound now, but if you can ungroup it again, take the sound off. And what you can do is you can plug 2 or 3 of these in just to pad the video out a bit further. Or in fact, because it's static, you can often just stretch it like that because there is no movement really in it. So that's another way of doing it. And the last effect I really want to show you that I use a little bit is I've got to sometimes just blank out things like if it's static, maybe a number plate or an email address, an IP address, that type of thing. That's a typical thing I have to do for quite a few videos. So what I'll do is we can use this example of that text where it says FFmpeg up there. Again, remember, you need to clip or cut the start and the end where you want to apply the effect. Otherwise, it'll be the entire length of your video. So if this is sort of more or less, you can scrub back and forth until you get to that spot where FFmpeg just appears. In this case, unfortunately, it's already there. And then I'll just go back a frame, 1 or 2, just 1 or 2 frames back. And I'll apply a cut over there for the start of where I want to do a blur. And then you move it off to the right and you just go past where FFmpeg ends and you apply another cut over there. So what we've now got is this is the segment where we want to blur, just that little portion. So not difficult, just make sure you've selected it. You can also, by the way, I've saved a couple of favorites up here, but just to show you where I go, I click on video effects up there. It's under alpha mask and keying, and the one that I use for this is obscure. So I choose obscure, I drag it down onto that video portion of the clip there, and you'll see there it's showing you obscure on the left where the mouse is, the cursor is at the moment. It's showing you that it's applied it, as well as up here it's now appeared, so you can actually start working with it. What you now see on the monitor preview is the little box that you can move around to wherever you want to obscure something. So I take it, grabbing in the middle, I take it to where FFmpeg is, size it down to where you want it, and it's now applied across the length of that clip. If you want to fine tune any settings over here, depending on what the effect you've got is, you will have various things you can you can affect. I think you can lock the aspect ratio there, for example, if you wanted to. Yeah, locks the aspect ratio. But there's a couple of things you can usually do depending on the effect. And you can have more than one effect. Remember, if you click down here on the audio, there is the volume one that you've already applied as well. And you could apply, say, color correction, loot, let me just see, color balance maybe as well. Drag color balance down there as well. Remember, we've still got that clip selected. And we could, say, take out the red tones and boost the blue shadow or something to that effect. So there you go. If there's also clips that you want to fade in and out of where you've got a scene change, remember we can also just put a fade in over there between clips. And if necessary, you can also do the same as I've shown already for sound as well. If you need to remove any of the effects, we've got now fade, color, and obscure, then all you have to do is just click delete there and it will instantly remove that effect. So play around with effects as much as you want to, really. And that's really it for effects. The only last thing I want to show under the editing really is adding a logo. So I've already got the Gadgeteer ZA logo in because I recorded this under Ob Studio, but normally I was using VocoScreen or Simple Recorder or one of the other recorders. I wouldn't have things like overlays and titling and things like that. So how you do that, not difficult. All you do is go back to Project Bin over here, right click and say add a title clip. Again, you've got the background to see what there is. It helps you sort of position that logo or overlay in the right place. And this time you're going to say add an image. You click up at the top left here and you choose the image. So sometimes I'll also use, for example, an arrow. If I want to point something out with a big arrow, I'll put that in there as well and then use that directional changes to sort of turn the arrow or point it in different directions. But in this case, I'm just going to choose my logo there. And you'll see it puts the logo up top left. You drag the logo to wherever you want it. And basically all I really apply is zoom down to 40% of the size. And you can position it, wherever you actually want it. Again, like I see, you've got rotation as well. So you could also rotate that if you wanted. But, looks fine as it is, I think. And then you just click Create Title. So the difference now is there it's on your bin ready to drag down to the line. For this, because I want to apply it across the entire length of the video, I'm going to do my Control mouse wheel and just zoom out again to get the whole view. And I'm going to take that clip that's got the logo in it now and drag it onto the third track. And I will just extend its duration all the way through to the end of the video. And then typically what I do there is I just give it a little bit of a fade at the end, as well as fading out the video at the end. And if we get to that, I should have clipped the sound off there. And I sometimes pause for think as well. So those are also things that I can take out and edit. And you'll see it there at the bottom left now. And they both fade out. And that is pretty well much it really as far as the editing goes for video. I think the longest part of the editing for me is really the ums and the ahs and the spaces and the lengthy thought that I go through sometimes. What you get as a final product really is a sort of a smoother flowing video because I've removed most of that already. Otherwise, guaranteed my videos will be twice as long. So last step really is saving and rendering. So you go obviously to save. Oh, and I should have, bit of a mistake here. What I should have done is when I started this thing, I should have saved it as and just given it a name. The reason is that it auto saves in the background, and if it was to happens to crash or anything else happens, you could just go and open that exact same one called, test video or whatever the case is. But it doesn't matter. It'll actually otherwise auto recover from a temporary save usually anyway. But that is a step you should do at the beginning. So I have saved it and I've saved it again now before I render. You go up to Project, you go to Render. I'm just using the plain MP4 here. Just make sure that your video and your audio are both ticked. Otherwise, you won't have sound or you won't have video rendering. You can just confirm again where it's saving it. the rendered video. I don't worry with custom quality. What I have got enabled though is the parallel processing with 7 threads. That just dramatically speeds up the rendering for me. So that'll depend obviously on your CPU and how many threads or cores it's actually got. I've got a 16 thread processor, so I'm just going to use about 7 of them for the rendering. So let's say render to file, and I'll know where to go find it up there. And it does give you an estimated time and so on as well, so quite nice. You can go and off and make coffee if you need to, wait a bit longer really. And it should be done. Okay, done. So the last step really before I upload the video, it's a sort of a 2-step thing that I do. And really what I do is I open the video that I've done, which is, it's rendered the video into my videos directory. So let me just go back here and grab it quickly. So what I want to show is the last step that I really do with this now is I have got the rendered video over here and I open it up with my default video player. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to play my video through from beginning all the way through to the end. First of all, checking that the quality is actually 1080p, because that could have maybe have gone wrong and then I've got to re-render or make a fix. And then I'll also make sure that there's no little tiny glitches or other issues that I possibly missed during the editing. The one other thing I'm doing while I'm busy playing with that is I have got my text editor open. And what I'm doing is I'm noting down here on the top left the time lapse, because what I do is as I've got to logical sequences where I want to have chapter breaks in my videos, I will take a note of whatever the time is in the timeline and I add that to the chapters so that I can define the chapters below the video in the description of the video. And that's essentially what I'm doing when I play through this. Well, seeing that I've just moved back to OBS Studio after using some the title we did capture applications for a while, this is maybe a good opportunity now just to use this as a sound test. That was the sound and the audio speed up we did. You can see the logo on the bottom left. Sometimes I'll also start a sentence with a filler word like so. And there was the color effect. Maybe take that out, otherwise and the volume adjustment we did. So that's basically it. About 30% of the time I will normally discover some other errors or problems here, and then it's very quick just to open up Kdenlive again and go and make your changes and just re-render it again. Because once you've finally uploaded to YouTube, you can't make those types of fixes and you can't just replace the video either, and most of the other video upload programs as well. So the only last thing I really want to show is just to quickly run through some of the settings for Kdenlive, and then that's really it. Configure Kdenlive under the settings there. And you just got a couple of miscellaneous, I'm not going to go through each and every one of these, but a couple of miscellaneous things you can set. You can activate crash recovery, for example, autosave, or turn it off over there. You can bypass codec verifications, a couple of other changes. I haven't really changed any of this. The project defaults is that resolution and so on, but like I said, I've used that quick thing when I drop the clip on, it sets the, I accept that it sets that resolution for me for the whole video anyway, so I didn't really worry too much with that. This is where you enable Proxy Clips, that little yellow P thing there, so that you've got quicker editing. You tick that on basically. You can set some rules here that it only applies for videos larger than a certain amount, so it won't proxy for tinier, shorter clips, and also for images and that sort of thing. These are some of the settings you can set for your timeline at the bottom that you see down here. You can seek to clip when adding an effect. There's just a couple little tweaks and things you can set there. Maybe you want your channels, your audio and your video separate by default, and you can click it over there. Environment really is your different folders and the default apps that you're going to use for things like image editing or audio editing. Colors is the thumbnail, the colors here that appear on the timeline. Speech to text I don't have installed, but it's a speech model you could have, and I think it does a conversion to subtitles, to generate subtitles for you. On playback, you can just define the audio driver and what device you want to use, what volumes, that sort of thing. The capture, so this is if you wanted to do a screen capture, or a grab, should I say, and I see it's got a frame rate, and I'm not actually sure where that came in. So I think you can grab little portions of a screen. It's not something I've really used. Blackmagic, I think, is a device that you attach to it externally that'll talk to. But what I was making use of and I showed was the audio capture, that audio voiceover dubbing. So there you can choose which device or microphone it uses, the volume, whether it's mono or stereo, that sort of thing. Jog Shuttle is also an external device that I don't have. And the transcoding of the video is just, if you've got particular that you want to create and save, and then you can call them up later to use as well. And that really is it. I know it looks very short, but the editing work, most people will say to you, is the longest part of your preparation for your video work. But I thought I'd like to show it in action. It's something that's been sitting in the background so long that I just take for granted, really. But it's a very, very important tool, whether it's for videos that you guys are watching or whether it's family videos I'm doing or anything else. Kdenlive is the tool that I basically use. So glad I could share it with you. And I hope some of it was interesting and enjoyable. And you guys must stay safe out there. And thanks very much for watching. And I'll see you in my next video.